Hey folks, welcome back. Thought I'd talk today about my thoughts on Dave Ramsey and specifically what Dave and his philosophy, his teachings have meant to me, my family, and our financial independence. If we haven't met, my name's Ryan. I live here in Minnesota and I'm retired at age 53. Started this channel to talk about my journey and share my experience, and hopefully some of it will resonate with some of you. I ran across Dave Ramsey quite by accident in 2006. Found his radio show, just stumbled across it, and within about 10 minutes, I was hooked. I had never heard anyone talk quite like Dave. I'd never heard anyone break down financial concepts in such an elementary way where it just frankly boiled down to common sense, in my opinion. Get out of debt, live on less than you make, invest X percent, I think he says 15%, into your retirement, and you'll be able to retire with dignity. It's simple stuff, to be honest with you. And before we found Dave Ramsey, in 2006, I would have been about 35 years old, and we were a typical American household. We had a car payment. We had a moderate amount of credit card debt, probably $1,000. We had a home equity line of credit from a recent kitchen remodel, and we probably had less than $2,000 on it, and just some odds and ends, nothing huge, but we had debt like the typical American family, and of course a mortgage. After listening to Dave, I was basically quickly hooked and consumed. I went out right away and bought the Total Money Makeover, his best-selling book. I read that in about 2 days. I gave it to my wife, and I said, man, this guy has really enlightened me to some things that I think really make a lot of sense. And I implored her to read it, let me know what she thought, and would go from there. My wife read the book almost as quickly as I did, and she had the same reaction. We got to do this, and we got to do this now. So we immediately jumped into Dave's baby step program, and we generally followed it pretty well. We quickly built up a $1,000 emergency fund, which is, I think, baby step one, and then we focused on getting out of debt. Now, where Dave and I diverge is I never stopped investing in my 401k. As some of you know, I started my job when I was 22 years old. We had a very generous 401k match and some decent investment options. And since I was 22, I invested in my 401k. I at least got the company match. I wasn't going to stop that. And looking back on it, I'm so glad that I didn't stop that. Compound interest is one of the magical things that you'll ever get to know in your lifetime. And I'll do a separate video on compound interest and investing and those kind of things. But one of the first things that I did is we did a budget. Okay, Dave says everybody needs a budget. I don't know that that's true, but I will say if you're part of Dave's core audience, meaning you've got debt, you've got some issues that you need to tackle to get back on track, or to at least get your life pointed in the right direction from a financial perspective, you need a budget. And I firmly believe this, and here's why. The first month that we had a budget, we felt like we got a raise. And of course we didn't, okay? We just paid very close attention to every dollar that we were spending, where it was going, and why, right? And we became very intentional about every dollar that we were spending. At the time, we had twin boys that were about 10, 11 years old. And again, we were just a typical American household, living essentially month to month. We were not destitute. We had enough money to pay our bills, but we were the type of family that would go to Walmart for a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk, and we would spend $75 somehow, right? Completing a budget and sticking to your budget forces you to not be that family that spends $75 at Walmart every time you walk in the door, okay? I firmly believe that. It worked for us. Dave's philosophy on paying off debt, I tend to agree with. It may not be the most financially, mathematically optimal, but Dave does the debt snowball version, which means you list all of your debts, smallest to largest, regardless of the interest rate that you pay on each of your loans, or each of your debts, I guess. So we had a car loan, we had a HELOC, and we had, a credit card. We listed them smallest to largest. We threw every bit of extra money. And by the way, after that first month doing a budget, we had all this extra money. Magically, we had all this extra money because we paid attention, okay, to where all of our money was going. We couldn't believe how much money we had to throw at that smallest debt. And within the calendar year of 2006, we had all three of those loans paid off, leaving us with only our mortgage payment. And since 2006, the only debt that my wife and I have ever had is a mortgage payment. And by the way, we paid off our mortgage 2.5 years ago. And that was, we had purchased 3 or 4 different houses in that time between 2006 and 2025. That's a different video for a different day. But completely debt-free, and that's what Dave espouses, right? Is get out of debt, pay off your mortgage as quickly as you can, because it eliminates risk from your life, from your financial life, right? When you don't owe anything to anybody, your stress level, your risk level comes way, way down. And he's right about that. Now, another thing that I give Dave uber credit for was introducing me to the concept of Roth IRA and Roth 401k. Didn't have any concept that these things existed back in 2006. But he explained to his listeners how the Roth products work, how you don't get an initial tax deduction when you pay into those accounts, but those accounts grow tax-free until you reach retirement, and then you are able to withdraw on Roth accounts tax-free in retirement. Never pay any tax except for what you paid initially when you made that initial investment into the Roth. I am so glad that I did that. Up to that point, 2006, all of our savings in, say, my 401k, my wife had a 401k, everything was going into traditional, and that was fine, right? At that point, I flipped the switch and we put as much as we could into Roth. We each opened a Roth IRA at a brokerage, and we fully funded those, and whatever was left we put into our 401k. And as soon as my company offered a Roth 401k option, I adopted it, and I ceased putting any more money into on the traditional side of my 401k. I put everything into Roth at that time, right? I loved the concept, still do, of paying those taxes today and never ever having to pay taxes on that money again. And as it compounds over time, over the next 10, 20, 30, 50 years, never having to pay taxes on that money again, incredible, right? Now, Some of what Dave says isn't necessarily mathematically optimal. That's okay. Personal finance is 90% behavior, right? 10% math. Meaning, if you just get the machine going, if you just start investing into your 401k as a young person and almost forget about it, just set it up every 2 weeks, or how most people get paid every 2 weeks. That money just comes out of your account right off the top. You never even miss it. Everything else you set up to go to your checking account, for example, and you spend what's in there. But you save first, and then you spend what's left after saving. And I think what most people, most Americans do, is they save what's left after spending. So do yourself a favor. Do your own investigations. Find out if your company offers a 401k, and please take advantage of it, right? I'm in a position now after 31 years, a 31-year career with the same company, being retired at 53. Now, I would tell you that I don't think Dave is a big fan of early retirement. That's okay. I've got several reasons for wanting to retire as quickly as possible. Those are personal reasons. I'll cover those in a future video. When and how people retire is a very personal decision. Part of it has to do with finance, right? You have to have enough money saved up. You have to understand what you're going to do about health insurance, right? You have to understand how much money you're spending. What are your expenses? Your expenses have more to do with your financial success in retirement than anything else, right? You have to have a solid grasp on what your expenses are, right? But my wife and I know exactly what our expenses are, and based on the 4% rule, we are financially independent, meaning we have more than 25 times our annual expenses saved up in investable accounts between Roth, traditional, and just brokerage savings. We've done that, right? We've been extremely fortunate, extremely lucky. And I give immense credit to Dave Ramsey for those first couple of years between 2006 and say 2008 or 9. I was all in on his program. Since then, I'm not Dave's core audience anymore, right? I've kind of graduated. And there are a number of authors and content creators and YouTubers, podcasts that I now dedicate myself to listening to, reading, watching. I find this stuff to be incredibly motivational. It really helps when you find people who have a similar interest, have a skill set. They're not trying to sell me something, right? But the people that I like to listen to, read, and watch have the hearts of teachers. Dave Ramsey says, find a financial advisor with the heart of a teacher, right? I totally believe in that. But I'm kind of a DIYer when it comes to my finance, right? I don't really get, I don't pay for external financial advice. We know what we're doing. We take the simple path. We don't do anything fancy. My investing is as boring as it gets, folks, as boring as it gets. But what we've done is we've invested for 31, 32, almost 32 years, right? And we've let compounding do the rest, do the hard work, the heavy lifting, right? And we're in a position now to where my wife is still working. At this point, we're living off her salary. We haven't touched any of our savings, and at some point we will, right? But for now, this is working out great. So anyway, that's my story on Dave Ramsey. I don't agree with everything Dave says. I don't agree with everything Dave does. Dave's very political in his delivery. He's very religious, and that's fine. It's his show. He can do whatever he wants. That stuff, I don't particularly want to listen to the politics and the religion on a regular basis, so I've found other folks to follow and to keep me motivated, right? To keep me focused on doing the right things, and frankly, keep me from making mistakes, because that's what people do. Human beings are not wired to withstand fluctuations in the market. We don't do it very well. We want to make changes. We want to tinker. We want to pull our money out of the market every time there's a sign that things may dip, right? But the market always comes back. Folks, that's my story on how Dave Ramsey helped me retire at age 53. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, remember, boring is good.